Welcome to the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. Just like you, I'm an independent retail business owner. I love the home decor and gift boutique I co-own with my sister, but I don't want it to consume me or my life. Join me each week as I share lessons learned, helpful tips, and valuable information for your retail business and life. Whether you're buying your products or making your products, whether you're a $25K business or a $2.5 million business, I'm on a mission to help indie retailers work less, profit more, and grow. Let's get started on today's episode. Welcome to episode 177 of the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. Today's episode is a bit different in the sense that we're going to replay an episode from last year, episode 138, titled 6 Reasons I Switched from Paper to Digital Notes. Many of you now know, since this is coming up, that I am preparing to launch the next Savvy Shopkeeper Digital Planner. But some of you may be new listeners, new Master Shopkeepers members, and you may not know about the planner, or you're anxious to learn more about this digital planner that you keep hearing about, especially in Master Shopkeepers. Before we can even talk about the digital planner, it's important to cover the basics of digital note-taking and why I made the switch. So I went back and re-listened to all of the digital planner and note-taking episodes from last year to see if any of them would be helpful again. And when I listened to this particular episode, number 138, it got me excited about digital note-taking all over again. So yes, I'm still all in on this practice, and I just can't say enough good things about it. I can't say enough about getting rid of all of that paper, kind of being lost in stacks of notes and not being able to find things, versus now everything's organized in my iPad. So whether you're new to this practice or not, you'll find this podcast episode helpful. I re-listened to it and found it helpful. So just a few updates to share with you because you're going to re-listen to episode 138 next, but I wanted to share a few updates since last year. So the first one is about GoodNotes. GoodNotes is the app I use on my iPad for digital note-taking. And there are two things to share. I think last year I shared that the paid version of GoodNotes was $10.99, but I actually think it's $9.99. So yeah, it's just a one-time fee. It isn't monthly at $9.99. You pay one time and you get unlimited notes and notebooks. This is huge. I hope you all realize what a crazy value this is. I have at least 12 folders in my GoodNotes app with a ton of notes and notebooks in all of the folders. It's just a no-brainer in terms of an investment. Second, and this is kind of big, is GoodNotes is now available for Android. It is in beta, so they're testing it, but I thought this was a huge announcement over the past year. So if you have an Android tablet, you can now download GoodNotes. And GoodNotes, again, is the app I use, and I teach about it a lot. So it could be really helpful to you if you have an Android tablet. And if you don't love Apple products, you can now use GoodNotes on your Android tablet. That's a big deal. Number 2, the Apple Pencil options, I think are the same. There's the first generation, which is the Apple Pencil I have, and the second generation Apple Pencil, that's the one I wish I had. But the first generation is completely fine. I still use it all the time. I really don't have any complaints. It's just the second generation's a little bit cooler. Number 3 is the iPad. I didn't get a fancy iPad for this. I went with a 9th generation. In fact, I really only use my iPad for GoodNotes. So I don't have all of the apps on it, which means I don't need a ton of memory on my iPad. I only need a little bit of memory. So I went with the 9th generation. I think the lowest amount or the second lowest amount of memory, maybe 64 gigabytes. But we will link the iPad that I have in the show notes because you don't have to go all crazy with an iPad to do this. And number 4 is The preferred screen protector. I bought one off of Amazon last year and didn't buy it. And then after I recorded those podcast episodes, I switched to Paperlike, and I am a big fan of Paperlike. It has a slight texture on the screen protector, so it actually feels like you're writing on paper. We will also link this in the show notes, but it's called Paperlike. So I just threw a lot out at you. Before you hear episode 138, it will all make much more sense when you listen to the rest of this episode. I just had to make sure that I shared those updates because there were a few things that are different from last year. I know that sometimes I share resources, tools, or teach lessons that might not hit you at the right moment. And if you did listen to episode 138 last year, maybe you were overwhelmed in that moment. Maybe you weren't prepared for a change. Maybe you didn't catch the episode. Maybe it was one of the episodes that you decided to skip. So many things going on, right? I completely understand. But I've learned that teaching concepts and repeating myself is a really, really good thing. And I'm sharing this episode again because I feel just as strongly or even stronger about digital note-taking and how much it has cleared clutter in my office, in my life, how much it has cleared paper. I'm saving so much in terms of paper. How much it has saved me in terms of searching for handwritten information and just the overall annoyance from my life of paper and sticky notes everywhere. Who hears me on that? Trust me, this made a huge difference in my business and in my life. And as store owners, we can all use a little more peace of mind, right? Just one more thing before you listen to the replay. If you want to see the show notes to this episode where you'll find links to all of the tools, I should say more current links for all of the tools I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, you'll visit my blog at savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 177, or you can visit the original show notes for episode 138 at savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 138. Here's my replay of episode 138, 6 reasons I switched from paper to digital notes. I can't tell you how many times I've probably said in numerous podcast episodes or just in talking with one-on-one clients or group members, just to grab good old pen and paper and write things down. I've said it so many times. This is what I've done myself. I'm sure it's countless number of times. Not only am I a fan of entrepreneurs getting things out of our heads, but I'm also a fan of writing things down so I don't forget them, or I have a running to-do list for some accountability. I like strategizing on paper, and of course, I love planning and preparing. As a full-time entrepreneur, I have a store. I have an online education business with a podcast, group memberships, one-on-one clients, partnerships, team members to communicate with, and so much more. This means I tend to have lots of calls booked every week, and I take a lot of notes. I spent the past 5 years using good old pen and paper, and I'm doing air quotes, you just can't see me, to take notes for everything I did. And I started getting frustrated. I didn't realize it at the time, but I started getting frustrated, not only with the volume of paper and sometimes then the filing that came with it, because really I wanted to save this information that I was documenting. It wasn't stuff that I wanted to throw away. And I definitely started to get frustrated when I was trying to find some of these things that I was writing down. And even though I had a file system, sometimes the papers would pile up. I'm sure I have a picture of stacks of paper on my small desk, but it would all start to pile up because I didn't always stay on top of my filing system. And you might be able to relate to this. So I know I have friends and I know I have group members because they tell me this who have multiple books or journals or notebooks where they take notes, maybe for classes that they watch or group calls that they attend or projects that they're working on. I have a friend who has multiple notebooks and she always says to me, "Oh, I have to find the notebook where I wrote that down. Or I know I have that sticky note somewhere on my desk and I can see one-on-one clients all over their desk trying to find that note that they wrote or that to-do list that they want to work on. You know, that one piece of paper where you wrote something down on. I see you. I see all of you or many of you doing this. I've done this myself. I would even sometimes take my handwritten notes and then type them into Google Docs. Okay, so talk about inefficiency, and you all know how I feel about systems and having an efficient business. Seriously, like the systems and processes gal was failing in this area. That would be me. I knew I was failing. I knew I was getting frustrated. And then I wish I could remember where, but I learned about digital note taking, where you still hold a physical instrument to write, like an Apple Pencil, but you're writing on a surface that creates digital notes. And really, the first place that I can think about that rings a bell in terms of like remembering where this might have first popped into my brain, the possibility of this, was when maybe I saw a Facebook ad for a Remarkable tablet. And this took me down a rabbit hole. Now, I don't use a Remarkable tablet now. I'll tell you all the things that I use in a minute. But I feel compelled to share about it because this ad is one of the reasons why I was inspired to go from paper to digital note taking. I feel like this opened a whole new world to me. And then while I went down this rabbit hole of digital note taking and what tool to buy and what to use, I became stuck in indecision about what hardware I would buy to make the switch. But then earlier this year, I made a decision. I was like, okay, Kathy, this is one thing I've been working on. I've talked about it in Master Shopkeepers, where even like responding to emails, I am telling myself, make the decision and respond. Don't wait a week. You probably know what your answer is, or dig deeply quickly to get the answer and reply to the email and get it off your plate. And really, since I've made this decision, both to get myself out of indecision and to make decisions faster, not impulsively, but to make them faster, and to switch to digital note taking, I have not looked back. Now, I'm going to slow down here a little bit. I often feel like retailers and those involved in the independent retail industry, I feel like for years, and hopefully I'm changing this, we've been behind in terms of using technology. And I have yet to hear anyone in this industry talk about this particular subject. So I'm really excited to be recording this podcast episode. Now, some of you may not think it's important or a big deal. I, on the other hand, have found this change. I'm going to use this word. It sounds dramatic, but I'm going to use it anyhow. It's revolutionary. I'm not kidding. It has been so good for me, and I'll explain why. And if I find something helpful in business, you know I'm going to share it with all of you. I don't always share it immediately. Most of my group members know, particularly those in Master Shopkeepers, that I do my due diligence. I will spend a year or more researching, spending time using something. I will spend so much time before I actually share a resource or something with you. I ask a million questions, I use it myself, and it's just so important to me to do that first instead of just promoting or sharing about anything that comes my way. It's really important to me to know that it works for me or that it works for other retailers before I share it with all of you. Now, I'm trying to think, maybe it's not 100% of the time, but it's the majority of the time, trust me. So first, let me tell you the 6 big reasons why I made this switch. Number 1, less clutter. I'm kicking this list off with this particular reason first because this has made a nice difference in my own home office and on my desk. Now, I have a small home office and I have a very small desk, which means a small writing surface. And I already have a large computer screen on it, so there isn't a lot of room. And the piles of paper and notebooks that were consuming my desk became so annoying. I had paper everywhere. And then again, I would file the paper away, but that only happened maybe twice a year. And I won't go into detail why or what, but what's important to share is that these weren't minor to-do lists or checklists. So again, it was important information that I didn't want to throw away. And there was a good chance that I would go back and refer to it. Number 2, sustainability. Now, I'm far from being the poster child of sustainability. Shout out to Jessica Thompson. Go follow her on TikTok if you haven't listened to her episode yet. She is a great representative for sustainability. However, I do like to contribute to being green. I even do some things at the Savvy Shopkeeper Retreat to help the earth. Like I use reusable lanyards for name tags. We use the same lanyards every year, and I plan on using them at future events too. That way I'm not giving everyone a lanyard that's plastic and that gets thrown away. Another thing that we do is we serve meals on real china with silverware instead of using disposable plates and plasticware. Those are just a couple of things. And to me, they might seem or feel minor, but it's important to me that I at least put some effort into this area. So anyhow, once I switched from paper to digital, I can honestly tell you I use way less paper. I don't have the piles of paper on my desk. I'm not shredding a ton like I used to. I'm not using a ton like I used to. And for me, I'll check that off as a win in the sustainability column. Number 3 is syncing. Really, technically, I'm talking about Apple syncing. Now, I understand that not everyone uses Apple products. I see and hear you Android users before you get mad at me. However, Apple is what I use, so this is what I'm going to share about. I have a MacBook Pro, I have an iPhone, and now I have an iPad. And one reason I switched to digital is because I knew I could access and read my digital notes no matter which Apple product I was using. I no longer have to be frustrated that the notes I take on paper, that they're in my office and maybe I'm at my store or I'm out of the house and I need to reference them, but I can't because I'm not home. I can now see my notes no matter where I'm at because generally I have at the minimum my phone with me and I can see all of my notes on my phone. Number 4, editing capabilities. This is way more helpful than I ever thought it would be. So my brain, you all know, can be scattered and crazy, like really scattered. And it may not come across this on the podcast episode, but I usually have a million things going on in my brain. I have a million projects that I'm working on. And actually, this is the case for most entrepreneurs. So when I'm getting things out of my head in terms of planning and strategizing and putting those things onto paper, it isn't always in the perfect order, right? Like when you go to write a plan down, you change that plan several times or many times before the plan is put into place. So having the ability to copy and paste and drag and drop from one page to another, I'm not even talking about on the same page, or from one workbook to another. And then you can even turn your handwriting into typewritten text. So like so many things that digital note-taking gives you the ability to do that good old pen and paper just don't offer. Number 5 is creative note-taking. This is actually a fun one. I don't need a case, like an actual pencil case filled with colored pens or highlighters to accomplish note-taking that's easier to understand and read. So what do I mean by this? On the Notes app that I use, and I'll tell you what I use in a minute, the Notes app that I use, there are highlighters. You can do different colored pens, and then you could even add fun stickers. Yes, digital stickers. I understand that it's not functional, maybe, and helpful as copy and paste, but it is fun, and it adds a really creative element to my notes and my note-taking. And especially if you're a creative at heart, you're going to love some of these features. Even if you're not a creative at heart, sometimes just highlighting certain things that you write down, changing maybe the heading or the subheading, or having it look differently so it breaks up all of the text in your notes. I mean, now we're going like back to school days. when we took notes in classes. But anyhow, the creative elements that come with digital note taking can be really fun and can enhance your notes. I guess that's what I'm saying. And number 6 is my notes. This is a big one. So I want you to pause and listen. All of my notes now are searchable. This is one of the things that make this whole process revolutionary. I no longer have to struggle trying to find where I wrote something down, which file is it in, where is it at on my desk. I can literally pull up my app, use the search function, and search all of my notes. And I already have a ton of notes in my app that I use. I can search them. It's able to search my handwriting. It's pretty incredible. And you can probably hear the nerdy excitement in my voice, but I don't care. This is a big deal to me. Again, because I'm not wasting time. And I love that it can search my handwriting. It doesn't have to be text that I typed out. Amazing, right? So some of you might be thinking, okay, Kathy, tell me how I can do all of this and use all of this. So here's a short list of what I bought to get this rolling in my life. So I bought an iPad, and I'm pretty sure there are many of you, because I've run polls in our groups, and I feel like at least 2/3 of the group members had an iPad. It was pretty substantial. It was definitely more than half. But I didn't have an iPad. I had no interest in an iPad. I already felt like having a phone and a MacBook was plenty, and I didn't need anything else in my life. But hands down, this is one of the best decisions that I made, even though it feels like a bit much. So I invested in an iPad. And it wasn't even an iPad with a lot of memory, because I don't plan on having a lot of apps on this iPad. I plan on using it just for a few things, and I don't need a ton of memory on it. So I think it was like the 10.2-inch screen. It was the 2021 version with maybe 64 gigabytes of memory. Again, not a ton of memory. Now, if you plan on putting everything on your iPad, you might need more memory, but I knew I wouldn't. So the investment in the iPad was, I think, around $275. And we'll have the iPad, the style of iPad that I bought. I'll have it linked in the show notes. Number 2 is I bought an Apple Pencil. This is a long, sleek, kind of just a little shiny, definitely feels fancy, digital pencil that works with the iPad. And the one thing that I did is I bought a first generation Apple Pencil, but I wish I would have bought a second generation, because the first generation pencil, you have to actually plug into your iPad to charge it. And then it has a cap to cover and uncover where it charges. And the second generation pencil doesn't have a cap, and it has a magnetic charge. So it actually there's a magnet in it, it sticks to your iPad, and that's how it charges. Simpler, easier, it doesn't have the cap, you don't have to worry about losing the cap. And then again, you can charge your iPad and charge the pencil at the same time. So that is one thing that I learned. I would have gone with the second generation Apple Pencil, and we'll have that linked in the show notes too. We'll have an Amazon link in the show notes. And then I got the Good Notes app. It's all one word, Good Notes. And there's a free version. You get up to 3 workbooks. It would be like the equivalent of like a blank journal. But you get 3 workbooks free with the free version of that app. Now, you also have the option of upgrading and paying just one time for unlimited workbooks. And of course, I knew once I filled up 3 workbooks and I knew I was going to use this long term, I went ahead and bought the app for unlimited workbooks, and it was only $10. I think it's $10.99 now. So we'll try to link that in the show notes. And it is, as far as I know, only good for Apple products. It doesn't work. From what I understand, it doesn't work with an Android phone, but I'll talk about that either next or in the next episode. So again, the Good Notes app, very, very affordable in terms of the workhorse that it's become for me. And then some other additional things that I bought. These are more accessories, not required. You don't need them. I bought just a cover for the iPad to protect it with a pencil holder. I'll link the one that I bought in the show notes too. And then I also bought, because this is one thing that's I feel like was really important to me, is I wanted to feel like I'm writing on paper. It's the one thing that I feel like most of us would miss is like, I didn't want to feel like I was writing on like a really sleek, smooth screen. So I bought a paper-like screen protector. I'll link the one I bought in the show notes. I don't absolutely love it. It's okay. I have a feeling there's probably better versions out there. So I'm going to try another one. And when I do buy and use that one, I'll be sure to share it. But we'll link the one that I bought on Amazon in the show notes. And I think that was $11. So again, I know from running surveys in our groups that at least 2/3 of shopkeepers, at least those in my group memberships, own an iPad. And I don't just mean an iPad for their store's point of sale system, because of course you could qualify that as you owning an iPad, but I'm pretty sure they personally own and use an iPad. I thought that was really interesting to me because I never wanted one and I never used one. And I was like, wait a minute, am I behind the game here? And really, if it weren't for this whole process, I probably still wouldn't have an iPad, but it has been totally worth it. So my investment was around maybe $500 total. However, if you're a current iPad owner, your investment in digital note-taking will be much less because really the only other thing you need then is the digital pencil. Okay, so time to wrap this up. Members of Master Shopkeepers have heard all about this journey of mine, and it has prompted quite a few conversations and tip sharing in our group, including me letting them in on a secret that I'll be announcing soon. And I'm sure you can tell I can go on and on about this topic. And I know digital note taking won't be for everyone, but what is important here is that if you're drowning in and frustrated with handwritten paper notes or journaling, to-do list, all that good stuff, this could be a fantastic solution for you. It's been a great solution for me. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like GoodNotes works with Android phones or tablets, but it does sound like maybe something like NoteLedge could be a good alternative for Android users. If you know otherwise, if you're like, oh, Kathy, I've been doing this for years, and I have an Android phone, and this is the app that I use, please DM me on Instagram so I can share it with other people. Let me know what you use. Even if you're an Apple user and you use a digital note-taking app that isn't GoodNotes, let me know what that is too. I'd love to hear more on this because I'll be recording more episodes on this topic in the future because it's that good and that much worth sharing. So DM me on Instagram. My username is @SavvyShopkeeper. It really is mind-boggling to me that more people aren't sharing about this topic and the ability to do this, the ability to take notes digitally. Seriously, I'm surprised that it's taken me so long to learn about it and to embrace it. If you want to see the show notes to this episode or find links to anything I mentioned, and we're going to link all of the hardware and software that I bought and downloaded, you'll visit my blog at savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 138. Again, it's savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 138. And please, if you use this, if you want to use this, if this intrigues you, if you do this on an Android phone, I want to hear all the things. I say this all the time. Like I tell people, reply to my emails. I reply back or send me a DM. It's really genuine. When I ask you for feedback, I'd really like to know. Or in the extreme opposite end, maybe it's like, Kathy, absolutely not. I love paper and pencil. I'll never switch. I'd love to hear that too. So go ahead and DM me on Instagram @SavvyShopkeeper. Until the next episode, be savvy and boss up.